In 1860, a man named Franklin Thompson crossed from New Brunswick into Hartford, Connecticut, and found himself a job as a door-to-door Bible salesman. Marveling at Franklin's charisma, the owner of his company claimed that Franklin was the best Bible salesman he had ever hired. A year after Franklin's arrival, the American Civil War broke out, and he decided to put aside his successful work as a salesman to enlist in the 2nd Michigan Infantry. At first, Franklin participated in the war as a field nurse, but when an American spy was killed in Virginia, he was able to take his place and begin spying for the North. During his time as a spy, Franklin dressed in several unique disguises, entering enemy territory and acting like a naive salesman or laborer. Franklin would gather intel and bring it back to the Union, uncovering several Confederate agents. However, after sustaining several injuries after falling off his horse and eventually contracting malaria, Franklin was urged to seek medical attention. Instead, he fled the infantry and became wanted for desertion. Upon arrival at a private hospital, Franklin was treated by a doctor who understood why he had avoided medical attention for so long. The doctor quickly discovered that Franklin Thompson was actually Sarah Emmon Edmonds, a Canadian woman who had fled her controlling father's request for arranged marriage so that she could pursue a life of ambition and purpose. Sarah did not return to the battlefield as Franklin. Her disguise now revealed, she instead served as a nurse in Washington for wounded soldiers. The men who served alongside her, even after the truth was revealed, all claimed that she was a fearless soldier. It's reported that more than 250 women served their country during the Civil War. All they had to do to earn their keep was pretend they were men. This is Watch Her Cook. Hello, everyone. I'm Cassie.
And I'm Danielle.
Welcome back to Watch Her Cook, a podcast dedicated to sharing the incredible lives of women who have taken their power back throughout history.
And I know that we've talked about the theme of the intro before on National Park After Dark, and you did it, I think. You covered it.
Yeah, it was in our Gettysburg episode.
With women who were disguised as men so that they could fight in the Civil War.
Yeah, and during Gettysburg, a lot of them were revealed because, of course, we know that Gettysburg was the bloodiest battle of all of the Civil War, and a lot of people were dying. And with that, a lot of people also needed medical attention, and that is when people were dying and needed that attention that they realized that there was a lot of women actually on the field.
Yeah, that was such an interesting episode, and something that I wasn't completely shocked by, but something that was a lot more prevalent than I had ever known.
And it makes sense, though, even with the theme of this intro, where it was like women would rather go to war and be free than to be stuck in an arranged marriage and have some potential of a future to make something of themselves and do something that they felt useful for.
Well, they wanted to fight for the greater good, and what, their brothers and husbands and friends were fighting and dying for. They wanted the chance to do the same if that's something that they felt called to. So they did it in any way that they could.
I would go to war before I would be in an arranged marriage. That's for sure.
Well, thankfully, the marriage that you're about to have is
consensual.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
You chose it.
I did, and I want to be here. But if anyone was forcing me, I would fight like hell to get out of there.
Well, thankfully, in this lifetime, so far, you're good.
Well, for this episode, we're also talking about a person who goes to war, but they have a lot of different aliases, and they are involved as a man and as a woman.
But this is the first time that we've covered a story on Watch Her Cook about somebody that we would refer to today as transgender. So we're really, really excited to do this one. It's been on our list for a while. And I was just telling Cassie off air, I get to use some of my French Canadian heritage in some of these pronunciations. So just a forewarning, I don't know much about it.
But it's in your ancestry.
It's in my blood.
I have a pass because I don't have any bit of French, not French Canadian, not French, nothing in my bloodline. So if I butcher these names, it's because my ancestors have never spoken them.
Well, I believe in you.
I'll do my best, though. Chevalière d'Eon was a French diplomat who worked as a spy for King Louis XV during the 7 Years' War. As an acting ambassador between France and England, Dion's eccentricities and androgynous appearance put their gender into question, and they spent much of their life towing the line between male and female expectations, challenging gender roles in 18th century Europe. For the duration of this podcast, we will refer to Dion as they, and we will use the name Chevalière Dion. Historically, they were known as Chevalier Dion, the masculine form of the title given when they were knighted into Order of St. Louis. However, we've chosen to use the feminine form to reflect both the complexity of their identity and the way they lived their life much later on.
Chevalière Dion Beaumont was born as Charles on October 5th, 1728 in Burgundy, France, to a family of low nobility. During France's time as a monarchy, low nobility was a rank similar to our modern upper class, but was considered poor by the standards of royalty. Charles's father, Louis, was an attorney, and their mother, Françoise, was the daughter of the French Commissioner General. A bright young child, Dion grew up to study in Paris at College Mazarin, graduating with a degree in civil and canonical law, meaning they were educated on both private legal matters as well as those dictated by the church, which was highly influential during the monarchy.
Dion's first job was as a writer of politics and finance for a literary publication, which garnered them attention for their ability to debate political questions. This earned them a role of secretary to a public servant by the name of Berthier de Sauvigny, working in his fiscal department. Their continued hard work eventually awarded Dion with the distinction of being a royal censor, which meant they were qualified to judge the editorial legitimacy of manuscripts.
A decade prior to Dion's birth, Louis XIV had reigned over France for over 72 years, making him the longest-sitting monarch to ever rule over a kingdom. During his reign, France was considered a superpower in Europe and were often at war with neighboring countries. This constant fighting strained much of France's resources, and when Louis XIV died, his great-grandson, Louis XV, was left to reign over a kingdom that was stricken with debt and weary of war. Louis XV struggled to maintain the powerful grasp that his great-grandfather had over the world. The question of who would rule over North America, which was occupied by both Britain and France at the time, was coming to a head as France entered the 7 Years' War, escalating its rivalry with Britain to their European colonies. Britain was aligned with Prussia, and this became the ultimate enemy for the Kingdom of France.
In order to salvage France's territories, Louis XV decided to set up a secret spy network, not even known to the French government. He titled it The Secret du Roi, the King's Secret Service. Chevalière Dion joined the Secret Service in 1756. Louis XV sought to use his spy network to collaborate with Russia's pro-French faction in hopes of reclaiming many of France's lost territories. Britain, however, controlled access to the Russian border and was determined to block French officials entering and holding meetings with Empress Elizabeth. The only individuals permitted to cross into Russian territory were women and children, which posed a significant obstacle to France's diplomatic efforts.
According to their memoirs, Dion, who had lived their entire life until then presenting as a man, disguised themselves in women's clothing to slip into Russian territory unnoticed, posing as a maid of honor on their way to visit the Empress. In time, the alliance between France and Russia strengthened, and Dion secured an appointment as secretary to the French embassy in St. Petersburg, where they quickly distinguished themselves as an expert in Russian politics. Dion held this position until 1760, when they returned to France and were commissioned as a captain of dragoons, a high-ranking member of the French infantry. This commission brought high honor and status, with a uniform that symbolized military pride and distinction. Of course, at the time, it was a distinction only available to men.
Kind of backtracking slightly to how they ended up going across the border as a woman. I think that it's really interesting that, and we see it throughout a lot of stories, not even just this one, but that countries will allow women and children in because they're deemed the
what are they
safe ones. What are they going to do? Just a woman. What's she going to do? You know, and meanwhile, as we also see in history and even the show is just that women are capable of a lot of things. And in this case, this woman or quote woman is a spy.
Yeah, I couldn't even. The spy life is not for me. And I don't know if I've ever said that before, but put it on my grave. I would crumble in a second. I don't think I could keep up with maintaining a facade for a prolonged period of time, especially at this time. Like, if they find out that you're a spy, you're not only going to die, but you're going to die in a really awful way.
Yeah, there's a lot at stake.
I've been to the torture museum, okay? I know what was going on back then.
You don't want that.
No.
The spinning wheel thing that just stretches you.
Being quartered and drawn, or drawn and quartered, or like having my tongue ripped out and my eyes poked with hot stakes or something. I'm going to tell you everything immediately.
Yeah, but then they just kill you.
Yeah, I'd rather just die.
I don't know.
I don't want to be tortured for the information.
If you have a purpose and you're saving your family and your loved ones, I think that you have a lot more at stake than that. Where if it's not just like, if you give valuable information to them, you know that your family is at risk, I think motivates people to not tell. I don't know.
But the flip side of that is they're like, we're going to kill your entire family unless you tell us something.
Yeah, but is it an empty threat? I don't know.
I don't know.
It's like either way.
That.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I would risk that versus telling them and then them killing my whole family and everyone else that I love and taking over the country. I think I could be a spy.
You definitely have it in you more so than I.
Yeah, I think that I could tough it out. I think that I could make up things on the spot and I would happily portray another character for a long time.
Well, you are a Gemini.
I am. I'm versatile.
The two-face of the zodiac.
The zodiacs. Yeah. I got it in me.
That explains
saying.
Everything.
You don't even need to know anything else about me. All spies are probably Geminis.
Somebody should do their dissertation on that. I would really... I don't even know what a dissertation is. Just felt appropriate to say. But I feel like the correlation there would be pretty strong.
I agree. It's like, have you seen where they do the list of all the most notorious serial killers and then they put their zodiac sign next to them? And most of that, not most, but a lot of them are Geminis or not Scorpios, Geminis or I want to say Aries. But
I feel like a lot of them are Sagittarius.
Oh, are they?
Because I took personal offense.
By how many there were?
Guys, come on.
I was surprised that there weren't more Scorpios on there, but I feel like Scorpios wouldn't get caught.
Yeah, they're above that, I think.
Yeah, I truly think that. I don't think Scorpio serial killers get caught.
After this, I'm going to look it up. Okay. Everybody else can look it up independently because we have the 7 Years' War to discuss.
Yes, we do have the 7 Years' War to discuss, which I have not discussed since like 4th grade also.
I know, same. When it comes to grocery shopping, each and every time I struggle with one thing consistently, and that's finding the time. With a schedule that always seems to be filled, getting to the store to shop is harder than it seems. But luckily, my time has been freed up with Hungryroot, the easiest way to eat healthy. When you use Hungryroot, it's like having your own personal shopper and nutritionist. Just tell them about your goals and your preferences, and they fill your cart with personalized recommendations. I love eating healthy and I do my best to find food that is clean, but one of my favorite things about Hungryroot is there's no high fructose corn syrup, artificial sweeteners, or preservatives in any of Hungryroot's food, and they only source top quality meat and seafood, free of hormones and antibiotics. They have healthy groceries like smoothies, kid snacks, sweets, ready-to-eat meals, salad kits, and even supplements. And when it's time to get cooking, they have over 15,000 recipes to choose from each week, and most of them can be made in 15 minutes or less. Shopping, planning, and cooking food really can be simple and stress-free. You're going to love Hungryroot as much as I do. Take advantage of this exclusive offer. For a limited time, get 40% off your first box, plus get a free item in every box for life. Go to hungryroot.com/watchhercook and use code watchhercook. That's hungryroot.com/watchhercook. Code watchhercook to get 40% off of your first box and a free item of your choice for life. hungryroot.com/watchhercook. dion.com/watchhercook, code watchhercook.
Taking on a DIY job around the house is the ultimate summer project. But if your DIY home security system is a beware of dog sign, when your real pet is Princess the cat, that's safe-ish. To be actually safe, help protect your home with a DIY system from ADT. It's easy to install and gives you virtual assistance from ADT's technical support team. Best of all, you can tell everyone in the neighborhood you set it up yourself. Don't settle for safe-ish this summer. DIY with ADT instead. Visit ADT.com to learn more.
Well, going back into it, the 7 Years' War continued to rage on, and then, working as a secretary to the Duke of Nevers in France, Dion was sent to London to assist in drafting a peace treaty to stop the fighting. With their signature charm and hard work ethic, Dion contributed to successful negotiations that led to the treaty's signing. For this service, King Louis XV awarded them the title that they are now known by, Chevalière, meaning knight.
At the end of the war, Dion remained in London, working as an interim ambassador for the Duke. Despite the ink on the peace treaty barely drying, King Louis XV took this as an opportunity to have Dion continue spying on the British for him, asking them to survey England's coastal defenses and identify potential weak points that might be exploited if France was to ever attempt an invasion. This request put Dion in two mindsets, as they were clearly positioned in London to create inroads and make a stronger connection between the two countries. However, the king's secret service was still not known to the French government, so Dion had no choice but to placate both interests.
Dion's tactics to build bonds with the British were notoriously elaborate. Many records indicate that they would import French wine and offer it to English diplomats as gifts. The French government took issue with this, considering it a misuse and overspending of the budget Dion was given. Despite Dion's well-liked personality among British officials, the French government saw them as difficult to control and decided to send in Count of Guerchy as the new ambassador to Britain. With him, they delivered a letter to request that Dion return to France to be demoted back to their original position as secretary.
Dion didn't take kindly to these orders and chose to disobey the government's request, insisting that they should continue to stay in England, referring to the Count as mediocre, believing him unable to make the same inroads Dion had. A back and forth unfolded between Dion and the French government, during which Dion leveraged their past espionage work for protection. In a bold move, they published private correspondence with the king, not revealing the details of their spy work, but simply making the exchanges public. This threat was enough to hold the government at bay.
The conflict escalated when Dion wrote a letter to the king accusing the Count of Guerchy of a murder plot against them. While no evidence ever surfaced to prove the claim, Dion was confident enough to file a lawsuit for attempted murder. The Count retaliated with a countersuit for libel, which Dion was ultimately unable to defend. Dion's inroads in Britain remained strong, regardless of all the publicity around their lawsuits, and the public were so opposed to the newly appointed Count that they would mock him and throw stones at the windows of his residence. Eventually, the Count of Guerchy was recalled to France.
Dion got in their way and remained in London, but went into political exile as the French government no longer trusted their ability to carry out their initiatives. King Louis XV agreed to fund Dion with a pension, which was likely motivated by the fact that Dion still possessed written proof of the king's intention to break the peace treaty and invade English soil.
I think this whole job role is just so interesting, and I have to wonder how governments view this today, if they're as weary to these unpredictable insiders as they were back in these days.
I think the answer is yes, but it's so hard to compare because with all the advancements in technology and stuff,
right?
Kind of like pulling a once over on someone or like hiding things it's just so much more difficult to do.
And you can look up so much about a person now, which you couldn't before.
Right. So
and facial recognition software. And
yeah, they can like read your eyeballs and stuff.
Yeah.
I don't
Crazy.
know. But I don't know. Like, I think that, in my personal opinion, like Dion, I think leaking that correspondence was kind of like a move of self-preservation and wasn't that bad.
I agree.
Like, I know it's
Did what they had to do.
Down upon, but what are they going to do? Years later, in 1770, France sent in a new ambassador, Louis-Marie Florent de Lamont de Haraucourt, to take over the Count's vacated position. De Haraucourt found Dion to be a strange person and got the impression that this person, who appeared to be a man, might indeed be a woman. This rumor slowly gained traction, and Dion's already celebrity status in London took an unfortunate turn as British diplomats began to take bets on Dion's true gender.
London had become a safe place for Dion after fearing that the French wanted to arrest them upon return to the kingdom. But now Dion was being accosted in the street by people who were desperate to discover exactly what gender they were and was assaulted by those wanting to prove their bets correct. God, why do you care about people's genitals so much? It's creepy.
It's unfortunate. What are we in the 1770s?
And it's still a conversation today. Like, anyone's genitals are none of my business, personally.
I've never once been concerned about it.
About someone's gender, yeah.
Never one time.
I mean, I've definitely seen people where I'm like, I'm not sure. And that's the extent of it. It doesn't matter. Don't care.
Yeah, but I wouldn't say that's a concern.
It's not a concern. It's
right.
just an observation. And then I don't care. Not my business. Unless, it's none of my business unless they want to tell me,
Right. Yeah. And I just can't imagine a world in which it would become an issue.
Yeah, it's not. It's not an issue. It's just so weird. Like, you're actually a freak for wanting to know people's genitals. Leave them alone, please, is my take on that. In an effort to avoid this, Dion exiled themselves from the public, often staying indoors and diminishing the fruitful social life they had fostered in Britain. They also never once chose to disclose their exact gender to anyone, refusing to give in to public cruel debate.
Yeah, good on them.
Yeah, I mean, sad that they're isolating themselves because they are so ostracized and just a spectacle to society. But good for them for not folding and being like, you know what? You're creepy. My genitals are none of your business.
This gender debate crossed borders, and due to insistence from de Haraucourt, the French government launched an investigation into Dion's true gender. French secretaries were sent to Britain in order to conduct an inspection. While there is no personal recounting of this incident, the result that the French officials made was that Dion was definitely a woman. Meanwhile, back in France, King Louis XV was pronounced dead, and his grandson, Louis XVI, was made his successor. The new king was informed of all his father's dealings and discovered the secret du roi. Seeing it as a threat to their peace treaty with England, Louis XVI decided to abolish his father's secret service.
Dion, now humiliated in Britain, heard of the king's death and attempted to be granted a return to France. The new king agreed to this so long as Dion turned over the written evidence they had of Louis XV's intentions to invade Britain. The new king also had a unique demand. He stipulated that if Dion was to return to France, they would have to do so as a woman dressed in women's attire. It seemed that the French government believed that establishing Dion as female would restrict their more eccentric personality and make them more compliant.
So they wanted to subdue them, essentially.
Yeah, basically, they're like, you can't come back as a man because men have power, so come back as a woman so you have no say in anything.
Yeah, you can play by our rules and stay in this box over here, and you can come back.
Yeah. It's not even caring about whether or not they're male or female at that point. They're assigning a gender because they have oppressed women. And they're like, that's the gender role that we want you to fit because that helps our agenda.
It works for us.
It works for us. And it's, again, why does it matter how someone's dressing or what gender they are? You have to wear women's attire. Why does that matter to you so much?
I don't know. We're asking ourselves that today in present day as well. Like this story took place so many centuries ago, but so much of this is still
the story is giving Stonewall. When you were talking about how they came to discover what gender they were and then decided they were definitely female. Like, that just reminded me so much of Stonewall, where police would come in and force people to pull their pants down and check their genitals to see what gender they were.
And weren't they something about the articles that they had to have like 3 articles of either clothing or accessories or something that proved they were either male or female?
They weren't allowed to have,
Or some,
they weren't allowed to be wearing, there was a 3 articles law where it wasn't actually a law. It was just something that people were implementing. And you had to be wearing 3 articles that conformed to your gender, but also you couldn't be wearing, or to your assigned gender. And then you couldn't be wearing things like, people could get in trouble. I remember reading that someone who was born a male and was wearing all men's clothing could be arrested for having false eyelashes in their pocket, or arrested
lipstick,
or lipstick, or arrested for having a purse. You know, and it's like, it's clothes. You're not harming anybody. It's clothing. I wear boys' clothes all the time, or quote unquote boys' clothes.
Yeah.
Like, women weren't even allowed to wear pants.
And
until not that long ago.
Right. And then it just escalates into such violence also, and oppression when it comes to enforcing these. Like you said, that wasn't even a law. It was just something that was implemented and adopted by law enforcement. And people conformed because they were scared, because they were getting attacked. And I mean, it was a scary time. And we're not talking about Stonewall, but it does have parallels that are important.
And Stonewall was not that long ago. It was not in the 1700s.
With all the cooking and baking shows on TV with all of their fancy ingredients and dishes, it can feel like you have to spend some big bucks and hours in the kitchen to create delicious food in your own home. But think again. You don't need to be a world-class chef, because when you use EveryPlate, you get restaurant-level deliciousness week after week with recipes like crispy buffalo ranch chicken and cheesy Mexican street corn hash. I am not particularly known for my cooking skills, and left to my own devices, I'm not very culinarily creative, but with EveryPlate recipes like chili mayo tempura shrimp rice bowls, I think I can hold my own. Not only are these meals delicious, you'll spend less on these flavor-packed homemade meals than you would on your normal grocery run or at a restaurant. And with their constantly rotating weekly recipes delivered right to your door, say goodbye to cooking the same things over and over and up your dinner game in 30 minutes or less. I love planning. It keeps my mind calm and my life in order, and that goes for planning my meals too. And with EveryPlate, I love choosing my meals ahead of time to know what I'm making each week. So what are you waiting for? Dig into these flavor-packed meals your household will love. New customers can enjoy this special offer of only $1.99 a meal. Go to everyplate.com/podcast and use code WatchHerCook199 to get started. Applied as discount on first box, limited time only.
You know how some dogs will eat literally anything you drop on the floor? Yeah, my dog is the complete opposite. He's the pickiest eater I've ever met. I can put down a bowl of food and he'll just give me this look like, nice try. But then I tried Ollie and it was like night and day. And suddenly, meal times are his favorite part of the day. Ollie delivers clean, fresh nutrition made with real human-grade ingredients, no fillers, no preservatives, just actual food. And they've got 5 amazing flavors, like fresh beef with sweet potatoes and fresh turkey with blueberries. Even my super picky pup can't resist. And the difference? He's happier, more energetic, his coat is shinier, and yes, his poops are better too. And they make it super easy to get started. Just take a quick quiz about your dog, and Ollie builds a personalized meal plan. Your first box comes with 2 weeks of meals, a storage container, and a simple guide to ease the transition. Dogs deserve the best, and that means fresh, healthy food. Head to ollie.com/watchhercook. Tell them all about your dog, and use code WatchHerCook to get 60% off your welcome kit when you subscribe today. Plus, they offer a happiness guarantee on the first box, so if you're not completely satisfied, you'll get your money back. That's ollie.com/watchhercook and enter code WatchHerCook to get 60% off your first box.
In 1777, still prideful of their long-fought career in the French military, Dion confidently returned to France wearing their dragoon uniform. French officials informed them that they must change into women's clothing or risk arrest. Dion conceded, and in order to better facilitate this request, the king allegedly appointed Marie Antoinette's personal stylist to provide clothing for them.
Oh, that's nice.
It's going above and beyond for something so
stupid. And they came back wearing their military uniform for serving your country.
Right.
And now you're assigning them a stylist, and they're like, you have to wear women's clothing. Like, let them wear whatever they want.
Readjusting to their life in France, Dion, who previously went by Charles, now often went by Charlotte. They wore women's attire regularly, so much so that French nobility began to embrace their return with open arms, allowing them to rebuild their public reputation after many years of antagonism. However, true to Dion's character, this well-mannered capitulation was short-lived, as they decided to continue their usual recreational activities more suitable to men, like fencing. They also continued to speak their opinion confidently in public discourse, which made many people uneasy due to the fact that women were not expected to do so at the time. The pearls that were clutched.
I'm like, the rage I feel. They started engaging in manly activities, like speaking in public.
I'm laughing. It's not funny.
I cannot.
I laugh when I'm uncomfortable, and this makes me so uncomfortable because I think about this a lot of just...
We definitely couldn't have a podcast back then because we're women speaking.
No, absolutely. We still face... I wouldn't say we face barriers today as women podcasters, but there's definitely some double standards still out there that we have encountered, which...
For sure.
I mean, we're still here. We're still doing it. It's not prohibitive. It's just something that is still...
Dealt with,
yeah.
Well, back to the story.
Dude, this is
back
getting
to the rage.
Cassie riled up, this story.
Back to my rage. They also continued their diplomatic pursuits, befriending Benjamin Franklin and proposing that they send an army to America to assist their war of independence. The French government raised an eyebrow to this request and realized that their intended subduing of Dion was not working. These continued attempts to perform more manly tasks and actions eventually led to a brief imprisonment for disobedience.
Upon their release.
For fencing and speaking to political figures, arrested.
Well, I think it's because, at first those things were like, okay, you're out of line here with the fencing and talking aloud. But
How dare you fence?
Now you're starting to get into territory of political matters that don't concern you, and you're being too big in this room and you don't have a seat at this table. So you gotta go.
Yeah.
They were released though, and upon their release, they returned to their hometown in Burgundy to live with their mother by request of the government, because again, they're like, you gotta get out of here. Your nose is in too much of our business and it's unwanted. Miserable at their circumstances in France, Dion began a campaign to return to England, frequently making requests to the French and British governments. These requests were often ignored or denied until 1785, when Dion was granted passage to Britain once again.
Yeah, they were like, get out. Like, we can't handle you. Get out. Like, sure, you can leave.
Yeah, I'm sure they were just eager to have them somebody else's problem and to just almost wash their hands of whatever they would come up with and whatever stir they would cause, and they just wanted them out.
Like, fine, you want to leave so bad? Get.
Yeah.
Well, 4 years after returning to England, in May of 1789, King Louis XVI assembled representatives of France's clergy, nobility, and commoners to Versailles to discuss the many issues continuing to burden the Kingdom of France. At this estate's general meeting, the commoners rose up against the king, inviting the nobility and clergy to join them, forming the French National Assembly in a civil war that would become known as the French Revolution. While the intent of the revolution was to empower liberalism and equality, it still did not forward the rights of women in France. It is often believed that women's clothing was redesigned at this time to remove pockets so that women would not be able to carry around any political activism pamphlets or paraphernalia.
And people wonder why women are so excited about clothing having pockets today.
It's like, pockets are fantastic. It was, it's funny that they removed pockets and was like, now they can't carry anything. It's like, yeah, yes, we can still hold things. Thank you. But pockets are so convenient. When you put a pocket in a dress, especially, there's just something that hits different about a dress that has pockets.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's the reason we get so excited about it now is because it's echoes of the past when we didn't have them.
Yeah, when we were oppressed.
Yeah, it's like something deep within us. It's like recognizing the significance of this alteration of clothing.
This knowledge makes me only want to carry political activism pamphlets in my pockets.
And/or paraphernalia.
And/or paraphernalia of any kind. France's divisions grew wider, and King Louis XVI was executed by guillotine. This dissolution of the monarchy impacted Dion in London, who was still living off an agreed pension to protect the previous king's secrets. This discontinuation of funding left a 70-year-old Dion without any funding. They began selling their personal possessions to make ends meet, and the revolutionaries also took all of Dion's family's possessions and properties as part of the Reformation.
Hoping to capitalize on the country's desire for new order, Dion attempted to offer their services to assist the French National Assembly by providing female soldiers to fight against a growing Austrian Empire. But Dion's requests were ignored. It seemed this government had no interest in Dion's antics. It's like, I'm sorry, I'm just trying to help. They're like, we don't want your idea.
Or we don't want any women.
Both, probably.
Yeah.
They're like, all around,
no.
A pass for us. At the age of 77, Dion suffered a fall that paralyzed them. They spent the final 4 years of their life bedridden and unable to find a way to make a living for themselves. Dion died on May 21st, 1810 at the age of 81 or 82. An autopsy was conducted of their body and determined that they indeed displayed the genitals of a typical male. However, the surgeon also reported that the body displayed several female characteristics, including breasts. Their body was buried at a church in London.
I don't really know what was available in the times, if hormone therapy was available in the 1700s. I imagine not, but I do not know the answer to that. But what this reminds me of, and I know that we refer to this person as transgender today, but this reminds me of something that I learned in women's psychology in college, and I actually didn't know this existed, and I think a lot of people don't because it's not talked about, but we talk about female and male, and biologically, not identifying as, but biologically female and male, but there's also intersex people who are born with both characteristics of both male and female, and I think that gets forgotten because people are just born that way. Some people are, and maybe this was the same for Chevalière, where they were born with the genitals of a male, but they also had female parts too. There's people who have male genitalia, but also have ovaries or have breasts, or, it's just some people are born that way.
And I think that's an interesting point that you bring up, that because I bring it back to the argument kind of more present day. I don't care what you believe, it's science. Science says that there's male and female, and that I don't care how you feel.
That's not true.
It's like, okay, you're omitting a piece of, yes, science does say that there are male and female, but what you're missing is that there's an entire other piece of the puzzle that you are just cherry picking out of the equation to drive your argument home. So the basis of which you're arguing is not complete. And it's just, it makes people who have a scientific background or any sort of, I don't want to say education, but like a education in the sciences or biology are aware of this. Yeah. So that argument really frustrates me, not just because it's demeaning and I think it's wrong to make that your argument when it comes to how people identify and what they feel is their true self. Yeah. But just at the boil down to the basics, it's not complete. You're wrong.
Yeah, it is. It is. Scientifically, you're wrong because people are just born differently. And I actually remember in this class that I took, Psychology of Women, we had to watch a video, and it was a it was a bunch of interviews of people who were born intersex and how it is dealt with in the American, I don't want to say government, but hospitals, that when a child is born, and I don't know if maybe the language has changed here since I learned in college, but they refer to it as ambiguous genitalia. There's only on a birth certificate male or female. So in those moments when your child is born and you have that your child has ambiguous genitalia, you can't tell if they're male or female because they're more intersex. You have to decide what you want them to be in that moment. Do you want them male or female? And you have to write that on their birth certificate. But more than that, they'll also perform surgeries as infants to make it match more the female or male role. And then all these people were talking about their experience where they were born with ambiguous genitalia and then they grow up. A lot of them had these surgeries. They were raised as female and then they grew up and they're like, I'm a man. And they go through puberty, they get facial hair, and it's just, and they had surgery that's destroyed their life. And that was something that I remember watching and just being so mortified for people to be put in such a box of you have to choose this. And especially your parents who maybe have never known this before, have only ever heard of male and female, now are faced with this problem that they never knew existed. And they're being told, pick one or the other. You got to leave in 20 minutes.
On literal day one.
Day one. Yeah. And it's like, it needs, I don't know if it's changed. I mean, I learned about this in 2012 or something. So maybe that protocol has changed. I hope so. But it just shows that scientifically speaking, it is not as black and white as you think it is.
Absolutely. And I think that is omitted from the conversation on purpose. And it's a shame. Dion led a very complex life, full of grand experiences and difficult social hardship. Their charismatic personality was often described as eccentric, though it allowed them to live their life first as a man, then as a woman, in a very unique manner. To this day, many scholars believe that Chevalière Dion Beaumont was what we would refer to as transgender. Their legacy is clear by the naming of the Beaumont Society, founded in 1966, which provides social, legal, and medical support to transgender people throughout the United Kingdom. In Dion's life, they authored many memoirs and publications, which provided a scope of understanding to the discrimination they faced when the French government forced them to present as a woman for the purposes of obedience. It is also clear from the candor of their writing that they were an intelligent writer, not easily convinced nor subdued.
Due to the notorious betting that surrounded Dion's gender debate, a public fascination so widespread that gambling houses in London were taking wagers on whether Dion was male or female, Judge William Murray of England decreed it illegal to bid on someone's gender.
Their story stands as a staunch reminder that gender has absolutely nothing to do with what a person is capable of achieving. Tenacity, ambition, and dedication are attributes that have no direct associations with man or woman, and in believing that women are incapable of these characteristics, history has constantly overlooked them. It's why women like Sarah Edmonds had no choice but to pretend to be a man to fight for her country. And it's why the Chevalière Dion Beaumont lived an incredibly influential lifestyle as a man and then lost many of their privileges when they were forced to dress as a woman. And this story is coming at such a timely point for me, just in my personal reading. I read a book that is just, it's so interesting because it's a book I wouldn't typically would have gravitated towards. I'm usually like there for like historical fiction or some sort of, I don't know. Memoirs are not usually my thing. But I think the cover got me, to be honest. But I picked up this book and just read it last week, and it's titled Cleavage, Men, Women, and the Space Between Us by Jennifer Finley Boylan. And this woman has authored several pieces. This is just her most recent memoir. She's written about being a trans woman before, but this book really highlights that she did not come out as trans until she was well into her 30s. So the whole book is about her experiences living life as both a man and a woman, and then obviously her experience transitioning and all of that, but just how her experience walking down the street as a man versus as a woman, and like just different parts of life that, you know, we debate all the time of how different it is for men versus women. And this person has both experiences.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
And it was such a unique read for me because it's, again, I don't really gravitate towards memoirs usually. And also I have, to my knowledge, never written anything by a trans woman before. So it was just really interesting to get their perspective, and not only on their life experience, but also on the life experiences of other trans men and women in their community, and just a lot of things that, I don't know, topics that we touched upon today, surprisingly.
Yeah. Hey, I love a good memoir. Get me a first person account of something that is truly interesting and intriguing. And when you bring in just societal pressures and what life is like in certain roles, I'm all for it. So I love to end this episode with a good book recommendation.
Yeah, there it is.
Well, thank you everyone for tuning in to Watch Her Cook.
If you're looking to dive a little deeper into Dion's story, we've dropped some sources for you in the description. Let us know what incredible women's stories you'd like to hear next.
And a big shout out to Sick Bird Productions, who produces our podcast and helps bring these stories to life. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Watch Her Cook Podcast, leave a review, and subscribe for more inspiring stories. Just a reminder, empowered women empower the world. Now let's go cook. See you next Wednesday.
At Arizona State University, we've made online education better, smarter, and more personalized so you can go further in your aspiring field.
I decided to pursue medicine once I realized that ASU did have the online program for biological sciences. You're still required to learn the same curriculum. You're still being tested on the same content that anyone would be tested on in person. The comprehensiveness of the program prepared me so well for medical school.
Explore over 350 plus programs at asuonline.asu.edu.